The funeral home was packed, the air thick with a somber silence broken only by the occasional sniffle or cough. I stood in the corner, feeling utterly alone despite being surrounded by people. My husband Jake was nowhere to be seen, not that I expected him to offer any comfort. Our marriage had been on the rocks for years. As I scanned the room, my gaze fell upon my mother Maureen and sister Cheryl, huddled together and whispering conspiratorially. A pang of resentment shot through me. Even at Dad's funeral, they couldn't put aside their pettiness. "Abby," a voice called out, shattering the heavy silence. It was Jake, sauntering over with a smirk plastered on his face. "So, did he leave you anything? Or did Maureen and Cheryl take it all?" I felt the blood drain from my face as his words cut through me like a knife. Swallowing hard, I lied. "It's all gone. Nothing left for me." Jake's expression shifted to one of relief. "I knew you weren't cut out for anything meaningful," he sneered. "I'm out. I want a divorce." As he turned and walked away, I felt a surge of determination rise within me. For too long, I had allowed myself to be a doormat, but no more. Survival instincts kicked in, and I knew I needed to protect myself from Jake's materialism and my family's toxicity. Memories flooded back, transporting me to my childhood home. Mom's favoritism towards Cheryl was always evident, from the designer clothes she lavished on her to the way she dismissed my accomplishments as insignificant. While Cheryl basked in the spotlight, I was relegated to the shadows, forced to work menial jobs to support her lavish lifestyle. College was never an option for me. "Why waste money on you when Cheryl has so much potential?" Mom would say, her words laced with disdain. The day I announced my engagement to Jake, I had foolishly hoped for a warm reception. Instead, I was met with icy glares and backhanded comments. "Are you sure he's not just after your inheritance?" Cheryl had sneered, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her champagne flute. Mom had simply shrugged, her silence speaking volumes. As the years passed, Dad's health deteriorated, and my visits to the family home became more frequent. Each time I was struck by the stark contrast between their opulent lifestyle and Dad's declining condition. While Maureen and Cheryl indulged in designer handbags and lavish vacations, Dad languished in a neglected state, his basic needs often overlooked. One fateful day, I arrived to find Dad in a critical state, his frail body racked with pain. As I held his trembling hand, tears streaming down my face, I confronted him. "Dad, why didn't you tell me?" I choked out, my voice trembling with both fury and sorrow. His eyes, once vibrant and full of life, now dulled by suffering, met mine. "I didn't want to burden you, my dear," he rasped, his voice barely audible. In that moment, I vowed to honor his memory and reclaim the dignity he had been denied. As the funeral drew to a close, I steeled myself for the battle ahead, determined to uncover the truth and secure my rightful place in the family's legacy. Little did I know, the shocking revelation that awaited me would forever alter the course of my life. Growing up, I was always the outsider in my own family. While Cheryl basked in the glow of Mom's adoration, I was left to fend for myself, a mere afterthought. The disparities were glaring, from the designer clothes that adorned Cheryl's frame to the lavish birthday parties Mom would throw for her. "Why waste money on Abigail?" Mom would sneer whenever I dared to voice my desires. "She's not going anywhere in life." Those words cut deeper than any knife, leaving invisible scars that would never fully heal. While Cheryl pursued her dreams of becoming a socialite, I was forced to work menial jobs to contribute to the household expenses. "It's only fair," Mom would justify, her eyes devoid of any maternal warmth. "Cheryl has so much potential. You, on the other hand, are better off learning the value of hard work." College was never an option for me, despite my stellar grades and burning ambition. "Why waste money on you when Cheryl has so much potential?" Mom would say, her words laced with disdain. So, I watched helplessly as Cheryl's every whim was indulged, while my dreams were crushed under the weight of financial constraints and emotional neglect. The day I announced my engagement to Jake, I had foolishly hoped for a warm reception, a glimmer of acceptance from the family that had shunned me for so long. Instead, with icy glares and backhanded comments, "Are you sure he's not just after your inheritance?" Cheryl had sneered, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her champagne flute. Mom had simply shrugged, her silence speaking volumes. As the years passed, Dad's health deteriorated, and my visits to the family home became more frequent. Each time I was struck by the stark contrast between their opulent lifestyle and Dad's declining condition. While Maureen and Cheryl indulged in designer handbags and lavish vacations, Dad languished in a neglected state, his basic needs often overlooked. "Don't you think you're being a bit dramatic, Abby?" Cheryl would scoff whenever I voiced my concerns. "Dad's just getting old. It's natural." Mom would nod in agreement, her eyes glazed over with indifference. One fateful day, I arrived to find Dad in a critical state, his frail body racked with pain. As I held his trembling hand, tears streaming down my face, I confronted him. "Dad, why didn't you tell me?" I choked out, my voice trembling with both fury and sorrow. His eyes, once vibrant and full of life, now dulled by suffering, met mine. "I didn't want to burden you, my dear," he rasped, his voice barely audible. In that moment, a fire ignited within me, fueled by years of resentment and a burning desire to reclaim the dignity that had been stripped from us both. As Dad slipped away, his final breaths a mere whisper, I vowed to honor his memory and secure the legacy he had worked so tirelessly to build. Little did I know, the shocking revelation that awaited me would forever alter the course of my life, setting me on a path of retribution and personal redemption. After Dad's passing, I knew I couldn't avoid the family home any longer. As much as I dreaded facing Maureen and Cheryl's scathing remarks, I owed it to Dad to confront the toxic environment that had consumed his final years. The moment I stepped through the front door, a wave of nostalgia washed over me. The familiar scent of Dad's cologne lingered in the air, mingling with the stale odor of neglect. My eyes immediately fell upon the tarnished family portraits adorning the walls, their once vibrant colors now faded and dull, much like the memories they captured. Well, if it isn't the prodigal daughter," Cheryl sneered, sauntering into the room with a glass of wine in hand. "To what do we owe the pleasure?" Before I could respond, Maureen emerged, her eyes narrowing as they fell upon me. "Abigail," she said, her tone laced with disdain, "I didn't expect to see you here." I steeled myself, determined not to let their barbs pierce my resolve. "I'm here to sort through Dad's belongings," I replied, my voice steady despite the turmoil raging within me. Cheryl let out a derisive laugh. "Don't bother. We've already taken care of everything." My gaze swept across the room, taking in the opulent furnishings and lavish decor that seemed so at odds with Dad's humble nature. Anger bubbled within me as I realized the extent of their exploitation. "How could you live like this while Dad suffered?" I demanded, my voice rising with each word. "He worked tirelessly to provide for this family, and you repaid him by neglecting his basic needs." Maureen waved her hand dismissively. "Don't be so dramatic, Abigail. Your father was well taken care of." "Was he?" I challenged, gesturing towards the tarnished family portraits. "These tell a different story, one of a man forgotten and cast aside by the very people who were supposed to love him." Cheryl rolled her eyes. "You're making a big deal out of nothing, as usual. Dad was fine." Her callous disregard for Dad's suffering was the final straw. In that moment, I knew I couldn't turn my back on the family home, not when it represented the last remnant of Dad's legacy. "I'm not leaving," I declared, my voice unwavering. "This home is rightfully mine, as per Dad's last wishes." Maureen's eyes widened in disbelief. "Don't be ridiculous, Abigail. You have no claim here." But I stood firm, fueled by a newfound determination to reclaim what was rightfully mine, and to honor Dad's memory in the process. Little did I know, the battle I was about to wage would test the very limits of my resilience and expose the depths of my family's deceit. In the weeks that followed my confrontation with Maureen and Cheryl, Dad's health took a devastating turn for the worse. The once vibrant man I knew had withered away, his frail body ravaged by illness and neglect. As I rushed to his bedside at the hospital, my heart sank at the sight of him, pale, emaciated, and hooked up to a dizzying array of machines. Maureen and Cheryl trailed behind me, their expressions a mixture of indifference and annoyance. "Really, Abigail, must you make such a fuss?" Cheryl chided, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her designer handbag. "Dad's just getting old. It's natural." Maureen nodded in agreement, her eyes glazed over with a callous disregard that sent a chill down my spine. As I approached Dad's bedside, his eyes fluttered open, and a faint smile tugged at his lips. "My dear Abigail," he rasped, his voice barely audible, "I'm so sorry you have to see me like this." Tears stung my eyes as I gently clasped his frail hand in mine. "Dad, why didn't you tell me?" I choked out, my voice trembling with both fury and sorrow. "I could have helped you, taken care of you." His gaze shifted to Maureen and Cheryl, who stood impassively in the corner before returning to me. "I didn't want to burden you, my dear," he whispered, his words laced with a lifetime of regret. In that moment, a fire ignited within me, fueled by years of resentment and a burning desire to reclaim the dignity that had been stripped from us both. As Dad slipped in and out of consciousness, I vowed to uncover the truth behind his suffering and hold those responsible accountable. Over the following days, I became a fixture at the hospital, tending to Dad's every need, while Maureen and Cheryl carried on with their lavish lifestyles, seemingly unbothered by his deteriorating condition. "You're wasting your time, Abigail," Maureen would sneer whenever she deigned to visit. "He's not going to get better, it's just a matter of time." But I refused to give up, clinging to the hope that Dad would rally and find the strength to reveal the truth about his mistreatment. One evening, as I sat by his bedside, his eyes suddenly flickered open, and a newfound clarity shone in their depths. "Abigail," he rasped, his voice strained but resolute, "there's something you need to know." As he revealed the shocking truth about his hidden will and Maureen and Cheryl's deceit, a sense of determination washed over me. I would not let their greed and selfishness go unchecked any longer. Little did I know, the battle I was about to wage would test the very limits of my resilience and expose the depths of my family's deceit. But I was ready, armed with the truth and a burning desire for justice. As Dad's condition deteriorated, I found myself clinging to his every word, desperate to uncover the truth about his hidden will before it was too late. Maureen and Cheryl, ever the opportunists, had wasted no time in presenting me with a counterfeit document that conveniently excluded me from inheriting any part of Dad's estate. "This is Dad's final wish," Maureen had declared, her eyes cold and unyielding. "You have no claim to anything." But I knew better. Dad's whispered confession on his deathbed had revealed the depths of their deceit, and I was determined to honor his true legacy. As I stood in the modest family home, the only untouched part of Dad's estate, I felt a sense of resolve wash over me. This was my rightful inheritance, the last remnant of the life Dad had built through years of hard work and sacrifice. "I'm not leaving," I declared, my voice unwavering. "This home is rightfully mine, as per Dad's last wishes." Maureen's eyes widened in disbelief, her perfectly coiffed hair seeming to bristle with indignation. "Don't be ridiculous, Abigail," she scoffed. "You have no claim here." Cheryl, ever the loyal sidekick, chimed in with a derisive laugh. "Yeah, Abby? Why don't you just run along and let the adults handle this?" But I stood my ground, fueled by a newfound determination to reclaim what was rightfully mine, and to honor Dad's memory in the process. In the days that followed, Maureen and Cheryl made their mission to make my life a living hell. From petty sabotage to outright harassment, they left no stone unturned in their quest to drive me out of the family home. "You've always been the weak link, Abigail?" Maureen would sneer, her words cutting deeper than any knife. "You won't last here." But with each jab, each attempt to break my spirit, I only grew stronger. Dad's unwavering love and faith in me had been the driving force behind my resilience, and I refused to let his legacy be tarnished by their greed and selfishness. As the battle lines were drawn, I knew that I was in for the fight of my life. But I was ready, armed with the truth and a burning desire for justice that would not be extinguished. Little did I know, the events that were about to unfold would test the very limits of my resolve and expose the depths of my family's deceit in ways I could never have imagined. With Dad's final wishes guiding me, I forcefully moved into the family home, much to Maureen and Cheryl's dismay. The moment I crossed the threshold, a palpable tension hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Well, if it isn't the unwanted house guest," Cheryl sneered, her perfectly painted lips curling into a sneer. "I hope you're not expecting a warm welcome." Maureen, ever the matriarch, fixed me with a withering glare. "You've always been the weak link, Abigail," she scoffed. "You won't last here." But I refused to be cowed by their thinly veiled threats. This was my rightful inheritance, the last remnant of Dad's legacy, and I was determined to claim it, no matter the cost. In the days that followed, Maureen and Cheryl made it their mission to make my life a living hell. From petty sabotage to outright harassment, they left no stone unturned in their quest to drive me out of the family home. One morning, I awoke to find my belongings strewn across the lawn, the contents of my suitcases scattered like confetti in the wind. Another day, I discovered that the locks had been changed, forcing me to seek refuge on the porch until a locksmith could be summoned. Through it all, Maureen and Cheryl reveled in my discomfort, their laughter ringing out like a twisted symphony of schadenfreude. "Give it up, Abigail," Maureen would taunt, her eyes glinting with malice. "This is our domain, and you're nothing but an unwelcome intruder." But with each jab, each attempt to break my spirit, I only grew stronger. Dad's unwavering love and faith in me had been the driving force behind my resilience, and I refused to let his legacy be tarnished by their greed and selfishness. As the battle lines were drawn, I knew that I was in for the fight of my life. But I was ready, armed with the truth and a burning desire for justice that would not be extinguished. One particularly trying day, as I struggled to regain my footing after yet another of Maureen and Cheryl's underhanded schemes, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. "Abby, what the hell is going on here?" It was Jake, his brow furrowed in confusion as he surveyed the scene before him. Before I could respond, Cheryl swooped in, her saccharine smile masking the venom that lurked beneath. "Oh, Jake, darling," she cooed. "It's nothing to worry about, just a little family squabble." But Jake wasn't buying it. His gaze shifted to me, and for a fleeting moment I saw a glimmer of the man I had once loved, the man who had promised to stand by my side through thick and thin. Little did I know, the events that were about to unfold would test the very limits of my resolve and expose the depths of my family's deceit in ways I could never have imagined. As the battle for the family home raged on, an unexpected twist unfolded before my eyes. Jake, the man who had once sworn to love and cherish me, found himself ensnared in Cheryl's web of deceit. It seemed that Cheryl had lured him into marriage under false pretenses, painting a picture of inherited wealth and lavish living that was nothing more than a mirage. As the truth came to light, Jake's carefully cultivated facade began to crumble, revealing the desperate man beneath. "Abby, you have to help me," he pleaded, his eyes wild with panic. "Cheryl's been lying to me this whole time. There's no money, no inheritance, nothing." I couldn't help but feel a twinge of satisfaction at seeing the tables turned on the man who had so callously discarded me. But even as I reveled in his misfortune, a part of me couldn't help but pity him. He was a victim of Cheryl's manipulation, just as I had been. As Jake's world unraveled, I knew that I had to act quickly to secure my own future. With a newfound determination, I implemented subtle yet effective measures to expose Maureen and Cheryl's shameless manipulations. It started with whispers, carefully curated snippets of information that I had gleaned from my time as Dad's caretaker. Slowly but surely, the truth began to spread like wildfire, decimating Maureen and Cheryl's carefully constructed facade of respectability. Neighbors who had once envied their lavish lifestyle now looked upon them with disdain, their eyes filled with the realization that they had been living a lie. Even our extended family, once so enamored with Cheryl's charm, turned their backs on her, disgusted by the depths of her deceit. As Maureen and Cheryl's world crumbled around them, I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. For too long, they had exploited and manipulated those around them, all in pursuit of their own selfish desires. Now, they were finally facing the consequences of their actions. But my revenge didn't stop there. With a steely resolve, I turned my attention to Jake, the man who had once been my partner, my confidant. "Abby, please," he begged, his eyes brimming with unshed tears. "I made a mistake. I need you." But I was unmoved, my heart hardened by years of betrayal and neglect. "You had your chance, Jake," I said, my voice unwavering. "Now it's time for you to face the consequences of your actions." As he slunk away, defeated and broken, I couldn't help but feel a sense of liberation wash over me. The shackles of my past had finally been broken, and I was free to forge my own path, unburdened by the weight of toxic relationships and familial obligations. Little did I know, The journey ahead would be one of self-discovery and personal growth, a path paved with the hard-won lessons of resilience and the unwavering pursuit of justice. As the dust settled on the battlefield that had once been my family, I found myself standing amidst the rubble, a solitary figure surveying the wreckage of years of deceit and manipulation. Maureen and Cheryl's carefully constructed facade had crumbled, leaving them to face the harsh reality of their actions. Cheryl, once the darling of our social circle, found herself ostracized and alone, her charm and guile no longer enough to mask the depths of her depravity. Gone were the lavish parties and designer clothes, replaced by a hollow existence devoid of the trappings she had so desperately clung to. "Abby, please," she had begged, her once haughty demeanor reduced to a pathetic whimper. "I'll do anything. Just help me." But I remained unmoved, my heart hardened by years of emotional neglect and exploitation. "You made your bed, Cheryl," I said, my voice unwavering. "Now it's time for you to lie in it." As for Jake, his desperate attempts to win me back were met with a firm and resolute rejection. The man I had once loved, the one who had promised to stand by my side through thick and thin, was nothing more than a shell of his former self, a cautionary tale of what happens when greed and materialism take precedence over loyalty and integrity. "Abby, I made a mistake," he pleaded, his eyes brimming with unshed tears. "I need you." But I was unmoved, my heart hardened by years of betrayal and neglect. "You had your chance, Jake," I said, my voice unwavering. "Now it's time for you to face the consequences of your actions." As he slunk away, defeated and broken, I couldn't help but feel a sense of liberation wash over me. The shackles of my past had finally been broken, and I was free to forge my own path, unburdened by the weight of toxic relationships and familial obligations. In the days and weeks that followed, I set about rebuilding my life, piece by piece. The modest family home, once a source of pain and anguish, became a sanctuary, a place where I could finally find solace and peace. As I stood in the living room, gazing at the faded family portraits that adorned the walls, a sense of closure washed over me. These were no longer reminders of a past marred by dysfunction and neglect, but rather a testament to the resilience that had carried me through the darkest of times. With a gentle touch, I traced the outline of Dad's face, a bittersweet smile tugging at my lips. "I'm finally at peace, Dad," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "Free and starting anew." In that moment, I knew that my journey had come full circle. The years of hardship and struggle had forged me into a stronger, more resilient version of myself, and I was ready to embrace the future with open arms, unburdened by the weight of my past. As I stepped out into the warm embrace of the morning sun, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the lessons I had learned along the way. For it was in the depths of adversity that I had discovered the true meaning of strength, resilience, and the unwavering pursuit of justice, lessons that would guide me on the path to a life of fulfillment and self-discovery.